Yeah. Guess we'll need this. Good afternoon and welcome to the June 16th, 2021 meeting of the Murfreesboro Planning Commission. We'll call the meeting to order, and we do have a quorum present today. We'll start out with our consent agenda, and we have several items there. So, item A is Calderon Subdivision Final Plat Review for 2 lots on 0.3 acres zoned RS4 and CCO located along Reed Avenue, Armando and Karen Calderon developers. Item B is Green Pastures. It's a re-subdivision of Lot 23, final plat review for 2 lots on 0.49 acres, zoned RS10, located along South Baird Lane and Sherrill Boulevard. Howard George III is the developer. Item C is Airport Road, Lot 1, final plat for 1 lot on 1.28 acres, Zone CH, located along Memorial Boulevard and Airport Road, City of Murfreesboro developer. Item D is Oakland Court, re-subdivision of lots 1, 2, 4, and 5, and the second re-subdivision of lot 3, final plat for 5 lots on 18.75 acres, zoned PRD, located along North Academy Street and East Embry Street, Murfreesboro Housing Authority developer. Item E is Hastings Property South, lots 1 through 6, preliminary plat for 6 lots on 13.77 acres, zoned CH, located along Joby Jackson Parkway and Manchester Pike. Denny Hastings Family Limited Partnership is the Partnership 2 is the developer. Item F is Salem Landing Commercial, Lot 1, final plat for 1 lot on 2.0 acres, zoned CH, located along New Salem Highway and Rivermont Way. Rucker Donnell Foundation is the developer. Item G is the Gardens of 3 Rivers, re-subdivision of Lot 5, final plat for 4 lots on 0.38 acres, zoned PRD, located along Elmcroft Avenue. Patterson Company, LLC is the developer. Item H is the Gardens of 3 Rivers. It's a re-subdivision of Lot 21, final plat for 3 lots on 0.3 acres, zoned PRD, located along Leawood Court. Harpeth Valley Homes, LLC is the developer. Item I is the Gardens of 3 Rivers, re-subdivision of Lot 9, final plat for 3 lots on 0.29 acres, zoned PRD, located along Elmcroft Avenue. Patterson Company, LLC is the developer. Item J is Journey Home, Lot 1, final plat for 1 lot on 1.37 acres, zoned heavy industrial, located along Old Salem Road. The Journey Home, Inc. is the developer. Item K is Old Hickory Buildings Office Building, Phase 1, a revised site plan, including a new entrance off of Captain Joe Fulgham Drive. It's for 31,724 square foot office building on 5.9 acres, zoned heavy industrial, located at the northwest corner of Middle Tennessee Boulevard and Old Salem Road. Old Hickory Buildings, LLC, developer. Item L is the Marketplace at Savannah Ridge, Phase 1A, Lot 4, site plan amendment for 2 multi-tenant commercial buildings totaling 12,879 square feet on 1.73 acres, zoned PUD, located along South Church Street. Murfreesboro North, LLC is the developer. Item M is Meadows at Kimbrough Woods, Section 4, final plat for 26 lots on 8.99 acres, zoned PRD, located along Shady Forest Drive, KW53, LLC, developer. Item N is Meadows at Kimbrough Woods, Section 5, final plat for 36 lots on 4.7 acres, zoned PRD, located along Shady Forest Drive, KW53 LLC, developer. And item O is Maples, Section 5, Final plat for 42 lots on 16 acres, zoned RS12, located along Merriman Lane, Mullendore Court, and Mendenhall Way, the Maples, Inc. developer. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any members of the Planning Commission or staff would like to have removed for further discussion?
Madam Chair, I did want to mention that item K, the representative of the developer, Mr. Taylor, emailed us yesterday and asked that this be removed from today's agenda. That's the Old Hickory Buildings revised site plan for Phase 1. He does wish to bring this up at a future meeting, but he asked that it be withdrawn from today's agenda. So we would ask that any approval be subject to the removal of item K from the motion.
Thank you. So item K will be removed. Any other changes, additions, corrections, discussion?
If there are no more questions, I will move for approval with the removal of item K.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can I ask something real quick, just for what it's worth?
Yes, sir.
Do we need to read all those, we don't read it all at the council level?
You don't?
No? Is that, I hate to throw a big monkey wrench into the plans here, but if that's not something that's necessary, does it matter to anybody? We all read it.
Let's see, for the last 22 years, we've read it, and that doesn't mean we have to keep doing it. If we don't believe...
Hey, I'm just saying, that's...
Yes, that took 7 minutes.
That's what I'm talking about.
Matthew, my recollection is that that's required under our Planning Commission rules, but I don't have those with me. Is that?
I don't have them with me either, but we can quickly reference that in the rules of procedure and
Investigate that before the next
Yep,
meeting, Mr.
and
Lance.
we can report back.
All right.
And if we can...
Be awesome. That might be my number one contribution ever to the planning. If we can get that cut,
Love it.
I'll feel good about this whole program.
We're not allotting 7 more minutes for you to talk.
There's a yin and a yang, man. Come on. I don't want to just be the yang. I'm trying to yin some too.
All right, so we will check into that and see if those have to be read into the record or if we can vote on it without that. Thank you, Mr. LaLance. We will move on to the Gateway Design Overlay section of our agenda. The first item we have there today is the Robert Rose Village East Lot 6, the Blake at Gateway. It's a final design and site plan review of an 85,789 square foot assisted living facility located on 4.1 acres, zoned MU and GD01 along Robert Rose Drive and Lothric Way. The Blake at Gateway LLC is the developer. Ms. Green, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much. I did spend many of my junior years here reading the consent agenda for a previous chairperson who also didn't want to read it, and I appreciated not having that honor anymore. So I would be in favor of whatever you choose. You may remember.
Oh, yes.
Our first item under final design review, or under the Gateway portion of our agenda today, is for you to consider final design and site plan approval for a project that's located on Lot 6 of the Robert Rose Village East subdivision. This Robert Rose Village East subdivision is a master plan development that is located south of Medical Center Parkway and along Robert Rose Drive. There are some new streets that were created in it. Lothric Way is one of them. You can see that on the screen before you. This development has developments such as Krispy Kreme, some apartments, a hotel, self-storage, gas station. Just across from this property, there's a site plan that's been approved and constructions began for a beauty salon with some accessory commercial uses. This Lot 6 is for a project which has been called the Blake at Gateway. The Blake at Gateway is a 90-unit assisted care living facility located east of Robert Rose Drive and south of Lothric Way. The property is zoned MU, Mixed Use District, and GD01. The proposed use is an assisted care living facility, and it will be licensed as such by the state of Tennessee. and that's how it's defined in our zoning ordinance. It's a use that's permitted by right in both these zones, and the site plan demonstrates compliance with our standards that apply to assisted care living facilities. As discussed at our last meeting, the proposed building is a two-story structure with its primary entrance oriented toward the street with a higher functioning classification, which is Robert Rose Drive. There's also a front along Lothric Way, and at the Planning Commission meeting, you discussed the uses of that area, since there were some individual patios, and I think at that time we were comfortable with the design and style and treatments of that area. As you know, Gateway requires four-sided architecture. This building has been designed with four-sided architecture. Go ahead and go to some images for you to help you recollect the structure. It's my recollection that the building was well received at initial design review. It was, of course, approved at initial design review, and we gave the green light to the design team to move forward. It is mostly a brick building, that it does incorporate some brick detailings at eaves, ornamental solid wood brackets, headers and seals at the windows and doors, and wood louver shutters. Some of the brick is painted, and then they also included a cast stone base to accomplish that base of building requirement, which is so important to our community. The architect had an unfortunate incident, but is safe and not here today. But the civil engineer is here, Mr. Kyle Hoyt. If you have any questions about the plan, the site plan, and I told him I'd say this on the record and in front of Planning Commission, is in very good shape. The only comments from the planning department were from me, and it was just about the height of light poles. They were able to send me some stuff to show me that they can now comply with that standard. So our engineer, our landscaping, and our planner in the planning department don't have any additional comments for this project, which I know is rare, so I told them I'd give them some accolades for the hard work that they've been doing for this project. It is our recommendation that you do approve that those subject to all staff comments, because there are comments from utilities in here as well. We'd want to make sure to include that into the design and the approval. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Mr. Hoyt's here as well. Do you have anything to add?
No.
So you gotta come up here. Your name?
My name is Kyle Hoyt. I'm with Hoyt Barini. We're the civil engineers and applicant for the project. We appreciate Margaret Ann's endorsement. We've been working hard to bring a high-quality project here. She's been working just as hard to answer all of our questions and make sure we're headed down the right path. So we really appreciate your all's time. I'm happy to answer any questions, but hope to continue that theme. We were well received last time and hope to continue that trend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoyt. Questions for Mr. Hoyt or for Ms. Green?
Hearing none, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Sorry. I was having a little...
Subject to all staff comments.
Subject to all staff comments. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Excuse me. Next, item B is North Church Property, Lot 18. Final design and site plan review of a 24,658 square foot commercial center gas station located on 3.1 acres, zoned CH and GDO1, located along Medical Center Parkway and Silo Hill Lane, Gateway Investments, Inc., LLC, developer. Ms. Green.
Thank you very much. Our next item is for you to consider development on Lot 18 of the North Church property. The North Church property is the name of the commercial subdivision located south of Medical Center Parkway along I-24, and includes many of our hotels. You may recall we call this area our hospitality campus because we have our hotels here, and we also have our conference center that, of course, the city participated in, and restaurants to facilitate this area being a hospitality area. Lot 18 was previously considered for a Drury Inn hotel, which many years ago, I think in 2008, and those plans did not come to fruition. You now have a property owner who would like to do something different on this property, and what they're proposing to do is Gotta make sure you get it right. An 8,731 square foot convenience market with also a restaurant, a 5,100 square foot fuel canopy, a 15,927 square foot commercial building, which included that liquor store, which was just over 10,000 square feet. As I mentioned, it's part of that larger master plan development. The proposed uses are permitted within CH and GDO1 districts. I did make the applicants aware that although the liquor store is not listed as a prohibited use, packaged beer is a prohibited use. And so when they are looking at future tenants, to know that that is something that we would not be able to allow since it's on the list of prohibited uses in the GDO1 overlay district. The site is designed as one lot of record, and there's no intention to subdivide this property. The plans, as they've been submitted to us, do not include the possibility of creating lot lines either, because they could not accommodate the design standards that we have. During initial design review, it was clear that you moved it forward at initial design review based only on the architecture. There were a lot of questions, a lot of comments, a lot of discussion about the site itself, and so, of course, I expect that we can continue that discussion today. Speaking to the architecture, and Candace Shriver is here as well, she presented the item to you last week. They are all single stories, even though they do look like they might be multiple stories, and that's important when you consider signage. Signage was something that was brought up as something that you'd like additional information on. I've asked Teresa Stevens to be here today, and she's to my left and available for any questions you may have, because she is the subject matter expert with all things signage in Murfreesboro. We looked at some bad examples of signage and wondered if there was any way we could restrict signage. I think probably because it was directly asked of us, and have gone back and forth with different ways, and the client suggested that they be conditioned to meet the GDO3 signage standards, which would be the most restrictive GDO, or the most restrictive signage package we have in Murfreesboro. What that means, the specifics I of course couldn't answer, but Ms. Stevens could probably answer those questions, so they are willing to put that restriction on them. I think the way that that would help is that the quality of sign is a higher quality sign in the GDO3, so it's not a cheap sign that's easy to manufacture and put up on the building. So the way that I think it could help is that it's an expensive sign. They'd probably have to think about it. As far as content, we certainly couldn't regulate the content of the signs, whether it said Margaret Ann's Liquor Store or Flowers. We couldn't regulate that. They could take it upon themselves probably to discuss what kind of signage they'd like, but that's not something that the city could actually do because it's a speech issue. And again, I'm starting to talk about something that I don't know a lot about, but I know some about. So it sounded like that the building design that we talked about was acceptable to Planning Commission. The building incorporated 2 colors of brick, and then it had cast stone used extensively on the elevations. The roof was flat with raised parapets and height variation. There were metal panels, but they were in bronze, so they're not our panels. And they were applied to the pop-up roof elements to add some interest. Ms. Shriver mentioned that she did bring that base up in the liquor store at least 3 feet so that it can help with screening what you see in there. I mentioned to you that I've seen in some uses where they want to put racks in front of the windows or put signs in front of the windows. We've seen that here where they don't want to use them, that it can be unpleasant and not meet the goals of having the windows, and so they've worked on design to help accommodate that. So like I said, Ms. Stevens is here if you have questions for her. There were also discussions about access at the at initial design review, and so I have on the screen the most recent version of the site plan. You can see that the direct entrance to Medical Center Parkway has been removed. So I'll just go through the changes with you. And it's been removed, of course, because city we had some very real concerns with its direct conflict with the improvements we would make to Asbury and the encouragement it may create for turn lanes or for U-turns in an area which we don't think is safe to make U-turns. So the proposed driveway entrance to Medical Center Parkway is removed from the site plan. A second entrance has been added to Silo Hill Lane, so now there are 2 entrances, whereas I think there was 1 before. The gasoline canopy is shifted east toward the intersection of Medical Center Parkway and Silo Hill Lane. Initially, I'd given them feedback to take the gas canopy off the corner and have the corner framed with the building, but due to this layout, they are requesting to switch the location of these two buildings, so proposed Building 1 and the gasoline canopy have switched in this plan that you have today. Building 1 is relocated to the west, which is part of that, and the site is committing to meeting the GDO3 restrictions for signage. Those were the primary changes that I saw with the plan. I'm available for questions. Ms. Stevens is available for questions. Mr. Balachandra is here as well because you asked some specifics about traffic and operation, and he's available for questions. Mr. Driver, do you have, is it going to be you or Rob, do you have anything to add to the project? No? Okay. Mr. Taylor cannot be here, but we do have architect and landscape architect for the project available if you have questions.
So I'll start. Let's talk about the screening of the landscape that would be on the west side, that would be near the Building 2. What's that going to look like? And how high is it going to be?
I'm going to have the landscape architect come up, but I pulled the landscape plan up for reference.
Good afternoon, Rob Mulchin, SEC. Are you referencing the perimeter landscaping?
I am.
Next to the detention pond on that side?
Yes.
That is typical perimeter plantings, which would be 3-foot-high shrubs at planting time, along with 3-inch caliper trees along that perimeter, along that detention pond
So
area.
in 10 years, what would that be?
I mean, 10 years, if you let those shrubs go, you're talking about 5 or 6 foot high if they're maintained at that element.
Okay.
And then trees will, of course, they'll be canopy. Those will be at full growth over time, 40, 50, 60 feet high at some point in time.
Right. The other question, and I don't know how deep we can get into this, but when Margaret Ann was making comments about questions about signage, I'm the one that brought that up. And so I understand we're restricting it to GDO 3. We can't restrict what the sign says. I get that. But is that an applicant choice matter or not? Or we can't make a suggestion not to have a particular wording, or that's just out of play with respects to the city and this planning commission?
Good afternoon. We can't regulate any content on any sign anywhere in the city. If they voluntarily do it, that's fine, but we cannot regulate any of it.
Okay.
I guess I'll ask more, Rob, I don't, maybe you know this or something. Is the applicant willing to adjust the language? I mean, I think it was a pretty clear question last time. Is that, no?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So I'll make a comment, thanks. So I got, look, the other thing that we talked about here, and I think Rom is here, but Greg kind of gave me a little heads up on what, what I think there's not really going to give us a whole lot of information. We had talked a little bit about traffic and the flow of traffic coming out of here and coming down there and having to take the U-turn to get back out. You recall, so I'm just going to cut to the chase on this for what it's worth. Rom didn't want to, I think Greg told me Rom didn't really want to come up with there's going to be X amount more for a gas station than there would for the current use, for whatever reason, didn't want to put a number to it. I think I pretty well know that it's a lot more. I'll just put it to you that way, and because of that, and because it's not really what I want, a liquor store sign and a gas station right here, that'd be great landscaping and all that, but for the extra traffic, the way it flows,
Mr.
I'm not going to
Lance,
support it.
if I may jump in real quick.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, though, I'm not going to support it.
Okay. Mr. Taylor did have the engineers run a number in regards to what was the jury in at 80 rooms versus the square footage and types of uses that we're proposing with the gas and the convenience and the shopping side of things on that side. Based on the M-Trans software that's out there to be utilized to do a rough calculation what the differences in uses would be, that software generated that we're looking at roughly about 25 cars more at peak AM and PM times than what was previously considered with the 180-room hotel. So that's what the software is telling us in regards to the differentiations between uses from 2008 with the Drury Inn and what we're proposing today on that side is about 25 car more than what the Drury would have said at an AM or PM peak hour time on that side. So that's the numbers that the software is telling us in regards to that traffic count.
I don't believe it, for what it's worth.
So I wasn't finished yet, so that's all right. Let's talk about this blocking of the windows. Can we talk about that?
Hi, Candace Schreiber, H. Michael Hyman Architects. Happy to be here today. Thank you for seeing our project. On the north elevation of the long retail building here, the large volume on what is the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that all those windows are pulled up to a 6 foot 8 inch height, which would allow for any normal size shelf. They do not have any intentions of blocking the windows. We are currently working on the interior plans. You will see no shelves, no bottles.
And no signage?
They're not planning any signage either.
So they're not going to put George Dickel or Maker's Mark sign that in the window? Is
They have
that,
not indicated that to us at all.
is that something we can regulate? Because I thought it was no more than 25% of the, and that was a safety issue, even though they're
Correct.
saying they're not going to do it.
So even if they're saying they're not going to do it, if it changes owners 10 years down the road,
Correct.
we can only enforce what's within the sign ordinance. So it currently is 25% of windows can be covered. The door can only have like 2.5 square feet covered for store hours and the name of the store. And the shelving is something that is not part of signage, although a lot of times it kind of gets, kind of crosses over there. It depends on if they put a sign on the back of the shelving. If it's within 3 feet of the window, it's considered a window sign.
If I may, the sign ordinance does allow certain signage within, and utilize the windows for a certain amount of signage. It does strike me that this is one where Planning Commission could put a condition on it of no window signs on this building. You're not restricting speech. That would be a time, place, and manner, not what they say, but where and how they say it. We've never done that, that I know of, but in a sensitive area, I think that's something that you could consider if you chose to go forward in that direction of placing a limitation that there'd be no window signage allowed on this particular building. I wouldn't recommend you go with that with the whole development, but if you wanted to on this particular building, and if the use changes, and I guess they're planning a liquor store, we don't know for sure that that'll happen, but if the use changes down the road, they could always come back and ask for that limitation to be modified, and y'all could do that, but I think it would be permissible to make that a condition of approval.
Thank you.
Finished, Mr. Halliburton?
For now.
Another question?
No, I'm done.
For now?
Yeah.
You certainly. Who else has questions? Comments?
I said it last time, I'll say it again, Rick kind of just said it too. I don't like a liquor store being the very first thing you pull into our gateway to the city, being the very first thing you say. Look, I'm not against liquor stores, that's fine, but when we're talking about the gateway that's supposed to be the entrance we're running everybody through, I don't want to see a liquor store as the very first thing we drive up to. So for that very same reason, I'm out too.
What scares me is that we don't have control, and I agree with Mr. Wright from the standpoint that's the last thing that I want to see on Medical Center Parkway as people get off the interstate is a project similar to what's happened near MTSU, and we have no control over it. And I thought that was going to be a good project, and after it's said and done, it's not. And there's not a thing we can do about it. I think whether it's a liquor store or a grocery store or whatever type of business, it's all going to be about the owner and what the owner chooses to do in the end and over time. I'm having a real difficult time. I don't want to limit anybody from doing business. I think the project looks good. I'm just afraid of what might happen down the road. And I'm having a rough time with this, and have had, which I think everybody could tell.
Yeah. Me too. That's why I wasn't that concerned about the traffic thing. I mean,
No sense in going down that
yeah.
path when we can't get past the major.
Yeah, the major
Issue is just the use of what we're seeing on the project. And I'll agree with the comments that have been made so far. Mr. Relachan?
Well, I think based on hearing what I hear today, I would like to make a request to defer this to a future meeting at some point in time for us to work with our client to figure out what we can do to look at the uses he's proposing on this property. I wouldn't want to, see this development fall apart just because of the use on the property on that side. I think the architecture is there, the site plan's there. We've made all the considerations you've asked in regards to traffic flow and such like that. Let us ask for deferral today so we can go back to our client and find out what we can do to look at the uses and based on what we've heard from you all on that side and have that discussion.
And I think that would be good, but in the long run, again, we've got to look at it that not just this owner, but what can happen to it down the line. So as long as whatever you're thinking that you might be bringing back would be something that we're going to feel really good about, whether it's this owner or another owner or and that it's a project we're really proud of to have right there as the main entrance to our gateway. So,
can I ask a procedural question
please,
as it relates to a deferral? Typically, I'm all about making sure we defer something as it relates to having there's already been a public hearing and all that kind of stuff, which, we don't want to have to go through that whole process again. I agree with all that. I mean, force the developer to go through that whole process again. In this case, with how this is, just procedurally, it sounds, the architecture being there and all that kind of stuff, I'm not so sure if we, just for example, get rid of a gas station and have a different use, is that something that probably has to come back through whatever process we have to do? I mean, if deferring it just means we're deferring it because you think there will be these slight changes, and that's just, I don't want our time, that to be.
we're wanting to see what's the difference in if we defer it or we deny it.
Yeah.
So the applicant is requesting deferral, which doesn't give you kind of like a shot clock because it's them requesting the deferral. If you deferred it or didn't take action, then the plan would be approved within so much amount of time. I look at Matthew because he has the zoning ordinance. So if they're requesting deferral, they kind of stopped your clock. You don't have to worry about that. If you're worried about that clock issue, you need to deny it with conditions. I would say, so they could come back for initial or for final and for site plan approval, but if they change the building or the design or layout significantly enough, I would advise them to come back for initial and then design and then final again, because if it is different than what you've approved, then it no longer conforms with your initial design approval. So I would say we got to go back to the drawing board. They have 6 months to come back from the time that staff had the meeting with them, and then, or they just have to have a meeting again. So if they request deferral, which the applicant did request deferral, I think it stopped your clock, and Mr. Ives can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that's correct.
And then And then if there are significant changes, and I haven't seen or heard what they're talking about, the changes, so I couldn't tell you the nature of them. But to me, it sounds significant. What you're asking for is no small thing. And so I would suggest that we do initial again and final again, because that process is a very helpful process. It works really well. I think the design team benefit from it, and so do Planning Commission.
But Ms. Green, there's not been a public hearing on this matter, has there?
And there will not be a public hearing unless there's a zoning change.
There's no change in zoning. They're coming in at this point with existing zoning, and so there's no public hearing on it. And if they were to elect to go plan development route, which would, of course, give Planning Commission and Council more control of the details, then that would involve a public hearing. But at this point, it's just Planning Commission review.
If they were going to go the plan development route, this would just kind of stop, and
Start
it
over,
would
basically.
be the end of this one, and we would start that legislative process, which looks a little different than this one.
I guess I was just trying to figure out kind of procedurally the difference between the deferral, I mean, if there's any advantage or disadvantage to either us or the applicant to defer it
I don't think
versus
there's-
deny it.
Sometimes it's
think there's
messaging,
distinction here.
depending on what message you want to send. Generally, we defer if there's something that you can work out. Okay, here's this thing that's really important. We think they can do it, they just haven't done it yet. And sometimes when applicants defer it, they find out that maybe they can't come back. But if you did defer it, you would have to bring it back up, probably next, I don't know what the time clock is, but probably next meeting, regardless of what they've done.
I asked, and I think I'm comfortable with deferring. I mean, I just, as far as like, I just wanted to make sure I thought, we had thought through whether or not there's some procedural reason to. But what I'll do is, how about make a motion to defer it with the caveat that it will come back through initial and final, rather than just coming back on a deferral at the final stage.
And that deferral is based on their request.
Yes, based on their request, and that make sure we have another couple of bites at it, rather than just coming through at the very end.
And I would request that you make that an indefinite deferral with the applicant's consent. Mr. Mulchan, if you wouldn't mind going to the podium and consenting to an indefinite deferral so that we're not on a clock.
Yes, I would like for like an indefinite deferral for us to work through this and bring it back at initial and final as well.
That'll be part of my motion.
Indefinite?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that in case it takes
5 years
him
from
two or 3 months, we're not on a clock to bring it back next month if he's still working things out with his client for 2 or 3 months.
I think Matthew just doesn't want to say defer it on 1 month,
Right.
2 months.
Right. I don't either, but,
Second.
Can I ask this real quick before?
yes, you can.
If we do it for, say, 6 months, then, like, if we do put a period on it, like 6 months, does that mean at the end of 6 months, they start over if they haven't got it figured out? I mean, I
If
kind
you
of...
defer it at 6 months, I bring this exact same thing back to you in 6 months, regardless if they've worked on it or not.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're starting with an indefinite deferral. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all very much. All right, next, item C, we have Jackson Motel site plan review of parking lot modifications to an existing extended stay motel located on 1.4 acres, zoned Commercial Highway and GDO 4, located at 831 Northwest Broad Street. DEVP LLC is the developer. I'm not sure if that's DevP LLC developer. Either way, there we go. Ms. Green.
Thank you very much. This third item under the gateway portion of our agenda is for you to consider a project for initial design review and final design review and site plan approval in the same meeting. It's for proposed parking lot modifications to an existing Jackson Motel located along Northwest Broad Street and Medical Center Parkway. This property is zoned CH, Commercial Highway District, and GDO 4, Gateway Design Overlay District 4, and the northernmost portion close to Medical Center Parkway is what is zoned GDO. And you can see that on my map as the hatched pattern, about half the property. The owner's representatives of the Jackson Motel are proposing parking changes to the lot. The existing building is a single-story structure oriented toward Broad Street with the side facing Med Center. The structure does not meet minimum standards in the zoning ordinance. The owner's plan for the exterior structure is for it to remain as a non-conforming structure. You may recall when this was considered at 2 meetings ago, it was deferred because there was some information that you requested that wasn't available because the owners were not present. They did come to the June 2nd Planning Commission meeting to provide some information to you with their intent, and I'll summarize what I think I heard them say, and I also went to the Codes Department to find out the state of the building, because I know that was a big question for you. So the owners of the motel, whose last names are Patel, were cited to Murfreesboro City Court for not correcting safety and substandard building code violations. The violations were documented in 2019 after the structure sustained fire damage. Progress was made to the unsafe electrical in the rooms. However, the fire damage remained, and the structure has been in a substandard condition for well over a year. The property owners went to Murfreesboro City Court, were found guilty of the violations to the city ordinances and codes. On April 20th of this year, Judge Ewing Sellers gave them 60 days to enter, and I looked at his notes, it was comp enter prelim order. I don't know what that means, but it's judge speak. They went to court again yesterday, and the applicants, the Patels, did not show up, so the judge started preliminary orders for fines. Considering the judge gave them 60 days on April to bring the property up to code, and they haven't done that yet, they are now paying fines. When Mr. Sunny Patel presented the item to you, I heard him say that within 30 days he would hire a contractor, and 30 days after that he would have the work completed, is what I believe I heard him say. And so, of course, that started from the June 2nd meeting. We have now a plan from Huddleston Steel. It is different than the one Mr. Patel handed out. The plan that Mr. Patel handed out, you may recall, I mentioned at the meeting, did not meet our minimum standards and was not something that you could approve because it didn't meet the zoning ordinance or GDO standards. The engineers for this project have worked on those and have been able to provide a plan that meets most of our minimum standards. We have asked them to change. They are phasing the project. It still doesn't, I still don't know why they're phasing such small parking lot improvements, but they're proposing to do the parking along the base of the building first with the landscaping. We did ask them to change the phasing plan to include the landscaping at Med Center along with the first phase, since there's no definite time frame for phase 2. Phase 2 are these parking spaces.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
So did they agree to that?
This is what the plans are, so if you approve the plans, they're approved as submitted, and if you do it subject to staff comments, then that
So
would...
phase 1 includes the landscaping on Medical Center Parkway. Right.
If
Thank
they
you.
wanted to change these plans, then I would need to bring them back to you.
Okay.
I mean, I think he begrudgingly agreed to it. It's probably an accurate statement, but they are, that's what the plans show, and so they do have plans that work.
Did Mr. Patel also state that fixing the rooms would be part of phase 1 also when he spoke last time?
That what was going to be phase 1?
That fixing the rooms that were damaged with the fire, that was, when he spoke last time, didn't he say that was part of phase 1?
I think he's supposed to do that before phase 1.
Yeah, I thought you said prior to starting this, they were going to fix the rooms first. But that was before the judge said
Before he didn't
this.
show up to court.
The phase 1 is fix the rooms. Phase 2 is landscaping on Medical Center Parkway. Phase 3 is the landscaping and parking improvements in front of the building. And phase 4 would be the additional parking he wants out extra. That would be my phasing.
We could certainly do that. I think regardless of whether the Planning Commission approved the plans or not, they're still required to fix the room. So I wouldn't want to say that these plans are required to fix the room, so that's why it's not included in this phasing plan. They need to fix the room because they need to fix the room. It's violating our city standards, and they're not complying with what Judge Seller said. I think the reason they didn't, and this is all like fourth-hand information, is they were waiting for the insurance company to pay up, but that's a long time to let something sit in that situation. Yeah. I'm getting a nod from the insurance person.
I'll say, but it can take a long time for the insurance companies to
But still, this is, Medical Center Parkway. It's something that we all used to be really proud of, and it's been sitting with piles of junk and disrepair for a long, long time.
Well, I guess for me, I went by the site and saw it, but the part that we're talking about that needs to be fixed is the part that is in the GDO, right?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that's what the killer for me is he's not fixing the part that's in the most important spot.
The same way when this first came up, I wanted to approve based off the rooms getting fixed first.
Yeah.
Because they look terrible.
So we can have a condition on this, we can add a condition that says that a permit will not be issued until the rooms are fixed. That's standard to do prior to the issuance of a building permit. Look at my attorney, make sure nothing sounds... Prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit, because they're not going to get a building permit, the rooms have to, I guess building codes have to say that they've been fixed and they're safe.
I haven't earned my 7 minutes yet.
You're reserving his last 2. Okay.
I am worried that we got a commitment at our prior meeting, and then subsequent to that, the same person didn't show up for a court date for the same exact thing that we were promised. I mean, I don't know what to do about it. I mean, I think maybe just doing it with the condition. I mean, there's still the argument of getting anything done is still a good thing to do, you know, and so.
It's actually my understanding he made the same commitment to the judge on April 20th that he made to you, so actually his commitment was to the judge first on April 20th, the 60 days. And now we're past that. So what he said to you, he had promised prior to you.
And there is, not cause is not the right word, there is a thought process, and I have not talked to this Mr. Patel, nor is he a client of mine from an insurance perspective, but my guess is that he very well, that could be the case. He just does not have the insurance funds at this point in time to take care of it because of whatever reason, that there's a discrepancy in coverage or amount that they would pay or whatever the case may be. So I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt as part of that process. Now, why you don't show up at court, who knows? I mean, there was a time that he didn't show up here because of the fact that he had a family member that was sick. So, I mean, he's not here to speak, so we don't know, and I don't really want to judge him on that. What I do want to say is exactly what Rick mentioned, is that if he's willing to make these improvements, I think we need to work with them the best we can so that these improvements are made. That's my comment.
So, and I agree. The only thing that I would say is I would hate for him to start spending money on because this is not insurance money.
Correct.
I'd hate for him to have a pile of money and start spending money on the parking lot and have not spent the money, because the flip side of it is he could choose to spend that money to fix the building and get reimbursed, and then so I'd like the idea of conditioning it.
And I have no issue with that.
And the insurance money may never come.
Yeah.
Right.
It may have been 2 years for a good reason.
Right.
That's my concern. If there's just one pot of money, and we're going to spend this pot of money over here, but what really needs taken care of isn't made whole first.
Yeah.
Like Rick said, the insurance money may never come.
Yeah, I believe we should approve it in the hopes that he'll do it, but with that condition, and then move forward, because if he doesn't do it.
I'll take a stab at it.
Go for it.
We'll move for approval with the condition that the rooms are brought up to repair, and a condition that's suitable to our codes department, or whatever the right language, something to that language, that would be a condition of the approval of any of the other changes, that be done first. But that once that is done, the rest of the changes would be approved.
And other comments, and other staff comments.
And it's subject to other staff comments. I haven't gotten used to that yet.
Motion and a second.
Sound okay?
Any further discussion? All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And moving on to item D, which is the Jackson Motel, lots 1 and 3, re-subdivision, final plat for one lot on 1.3 acres, zoned commercial highway and GDO 4 along Northwest Broad Street and Medical Center Parkway. Dev P LLC developer. Ms. Green.
Thank you very much. This item is a companion item to the previous. One of staff comments was that a subdivision plat be submitted, reviewed, and approved and recorded prior to the work beginning, because this map, or what you see on the screen before you, shows you approximate locations of property lines. What it doesn't show you, there's actually a property line currently that goes right there between the buildings, and that plat was recorded in 1991. Since it was recorded in 1991, there's been a physical connection across that property line, and so our codes does not allow buildings to cross property lines. And so since I noticed that, and as a way to remedy the apparent, and I don't know who's responsible for this, but for the apparent violation, I've asked them to remove that property line. So on the plat, it would be this property line. So this is a subdivision plat, and it's based on one of staff's conditions.
This really has no bearing on the other stuff that we've been talking about, is that right? I mean,
No, it doesn't.
Clean up.
I'll move for approval, subject to staff comment.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Green. All right, next we have plats and plans. Two items there. First item is Hidden Rivers Estates, Phase 1B, site plan for 102 single-family attached dwellings. They're townhomes on 39.61 acres, zoned PUD, located along located north of Cason Trail East. Located north of Cason Trail, east of Stony Meadow Drive. Hidden River Holding Company, LLC, is the developer. Ms. Rush, sorry about that.
Thank you. Sounds like I missed an and or a comma there. My apologies.
My fault.
So the site plan is for the second phase of Hidden River Estates. The first phase was brought to the Planning Commission last month, so you did have an opportunity to see what the architecture and site layout was happening out in that plan unit development. So here in the second phase, this is predominantly the cottages, which is a 2 townhome unit building, and there's a total of 51 buildings, so there's a total of 102 townhome units. So these are very nicely designed. They will be comprised of brick facade and cement board siding. They all have covered porches. You can see on the elevation that there are shutters on the windows, windows on all 4 sides, the rear, the sides of the building, as well as the front, fairly decorative. Garage doors are included. Each unit will have its own side patio, and the HVAC will be in the back with screening. They are going to install privacy fencing and screening. The applicant has indicated that he's going to install a berm with vegetation along the public roads. So in addition to Eastview Drive, it would also be along the Grace John Circle, or on the outside of that one. I do apologize. So one of the comments that staff had was to discourage the white vinyl fencing. The applicants indicated that that was his preference. Due to the berm for screening and vegetation, staff is comfortable with modifying that condition number 4 to remove the reference to the white vinyl fencing being discouraged. In terms of parking, they each are 2-car garages. There's also room for 2 cars in the driveway. There's also going to be guest parking spaces dispersed throughout this Phase 2 for a total of 20 additional spaces. As such, the project as proposed is consistent with the Plan Unit Development Program book, and staff is supportive of the project with the conditions that staff comments included.
So can I just ask, when you say a condition to remove the white vinyl fencing, are you saying for some other type of fencing or just removing the fencing altogether?
The discouragement was for the color and the material type.
Clarify.
So since it'll be screened, the applicant can have his fencing that he's wishing to put in.
just not white vinyl.
Right.
No, he's
No,
he's asking that he can have white. You're saying he can have white vinyl now.
I think I'll defer to Brian if he wants to clarify for everybody. My double negatives may be confusing.
We do want to use the white vinyl fencing because all of our soffit and trims are white, so we didn't want to change the color of the fence. And right now, we've done the wooden fences before and stained them, they just don't hold up over time. They start looking bad. So I think they look the best when it's all said and done. We're going to put there's some decorative ones we can do that actually she showed me. So that's what we're going to commit to.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Burns. And so, Ms. Rush, you wanted to have that removed. And so, is that correct, the white vinyl fencing?
Yeah, condition number 4 should still state, provided detail of the fence with material and color noted, because there was no detail provided in the plan set. So I'd like to retain that part of the condition and then discard the text that reads, please avoid white vinyl fencing facing the public right-of-way.
And the reasoning behind that is that there's a berm in front of it.
The reason is because there will be screening of on-site views from the public right-of-way due to the berm and vegetation that he's proposing.
Is it possible for you to scroll to the page you're talking about?
Number 4.
You're saying delete the second sentence,
Correct.
right?
Thank you, Mr. Ives. Yes.
All he's asking to do is keep it white. And she initially said to avoid it, but now she's removing that.
All right, other questions, comments?
I don't have a problem with the white vinyl fence, so I'm gonna make a motion we approve it, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Changing item.
Was she,
So your
That would be
staff
part of
comment
Right, so
changes what's in writing there.
So my staff comment, what I'm suggesting is rear patio fences, provide a detail of the fence with material and color noted. I'm okay with the white vinyl fencing, so you can strike that second sentence. And the reason why I'm okay with that is because of the berming and the landscape screening.
Perfect.
So my question would be, does there need to be something added that adds the berm and the landscape screening, or is it already in?
They've submitted a revised site plan a couple days ago that's got the berm in it. I could add a comment to that effect. Comment number 5, provide berming and landscape screening along public right-of-way.
Okay. Thank
keep
you.
my motion subject to all staff comments and staff comments that have just been added.
Perfect.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thank you for your patience.
Ms. Rush, thank you all. All right, next item B is Kings Landing Villas Master Plan and Preliminary Plat, final plat for 30 lots on 13.2 acres, zoned PRD, Black Diamond Construction LLC developer. Ms. Green.
Thank you very much. I have on the screen just an excerpt from the Plan Development Program Book for property or a project referred to as Kings Landing Villas. It's zoned PRD, Planned Residential District, and is located north of West Thompson Lane. The property in total is 13.2 acres with several single-family detached residential lots. Those are the yellow ones, and then townhomes or single-family attached lots. This project was approved, I believe it was last year because it's a 2020 file, and it allows 28 lots for single-family development, and then, of course, the townhomes. Take you to another page that shows the master plan here. The PRD book committed to meeting architectural standards for the single-family homes. Those are reviewed by the planning department with the permit. So when a builder comes in with a permit for a single-family home, they'll provide architectural elevations and renderings of those homes to show they comply with the commitments made in the PRD book. So as a part of our process, that will happen later. At this point, staff reviewed the plan for compliance with the plan development and with the city's development guidelines. As you know, the purpose of a preliminary plat is to identify the location and extent of the proposed subdivision, to confirm it conforms to the previously approved master plan, and to gain authorization from the Planning Commission to proceed with preparation of construction plans and final plats. Approval of this preliminary plat does not confer a vested right to proceed with the development of the property as shown on the preliminary plat, but rather it authorizes the applicants to submit construction plans in accordance with said approval and the requirements of the subdivision regulations. The preliminary plat that was submitted to us or resubmitted to us on June 2nd for this property did not address all of staff's comments or concerns, and some of those were very significant and possibly alter the lot layout and rights of way proposed with this project. In my report, I put if the plans are not adequately revised prior to Planning Commission meeting on June 16th today, the staff recommends the plans be deferred. I'd like to just walk through some of those items that we think are, we call them big ticket items, and just make you aware of them. The applicant is requesting, because preliminary plat isn't construction plans, they're requesting that to continue working on these, and I'll of course invite them up to speak with the construction plans, which is the next step. So they're asking you to go ahead and approve the plans today. One of the comments is that this roundabout design is incomplete. It's not showing all the design elements that are needed for the roundabout, and that we need details for the signage, striping, and cross sections of construction materials. We want to make sure the roundabout is large enough to accommodate city's fire truck and regular vehicles as well. And I think that they have been working with our staff back and forth, sending documents since the agenda was published on Friday to show us that they've been able to increase the roundabout, but at this point we want to just make sure that we get all the details that are needed on a roundabout and that it does meet that minimum size that we need for, of course, fire trucks and other service delivery vehicles. You also may remember that during the zoning process, there was some commitments made by the developer for the existing drainage, particularly with the Northborough Court subdivision that's adjacent to the property. The Northborough Court, or the lots that are adjacent to this property, actually have a 10-foot drainage easement recorded. However, there's no infrastructure in that 10 feet. The applicants are proposing to add 10 feet on this property to make it a total of 20 feet for drainage easement, which is the minimum size the city requires. And of course, they're proposing to do work on their property to help their property drain, because it does have some significant water holding ability on this property. But in deference to those commitments made to Planning Commission, to City Council, and to the neighbors to try to make it better for the Northborough Courts, we've asked for information on these plans, spot shot elevations, and proposed improvements that can be identified that can help the water that's trapped in Northborough get into the drainage easement and to the retention pond and ultimately be treated and improve the situation. So far, our plans don't show that information. I'm sure it's the developer's intent to do it, but really we need these communication tools to be comprehensive and give us that information. And when the first piece of equipment's moved on the property, and I get a call personally from Ms. Dansberry, who we have a good relationship with, she's going to want to know, well, those promises were made, how is this going to, what are they doing on my property to help? And so I believe that the team's going to be working on that. It's just the plans that you have today don't show that. And also, the design guidelines ask for street trees in new subdivisions, and they were very willing to include that in the zoning plan. But now that we're at the technical review, actually looking at the pen to the paper and measuring and scaling and making sure everything works, one of our staff asks is show utilities up front. Don't just rely on them to be constructed in the field and then have problems in the field. We want these plans to show us where your driveways are. The driveways need to be a minimum of 16 to 18 feet wide to actually fit the cars. Where are your utility boxes going? Where's your electric going? And then where can you put the street tree? Because when there are conflicts, the street tree will always lose, and that was a commitment made in the program book, and it actually will be something that makes this development look really good. And so we are asking them to work on those, locate them up front at the very beginning of the process, so that we know that it can work and they can meet those minimum standards and have a plan that does work. So as of yet, we don't have that information to say, okay, you've got room for the driveways, the water, the sewer, and the electric, but I think that they're working on that, and they're willing to turn around pretty quickly, according to the conversations that our staff have had with them. And of course, so the driveways on here are being shown, I think, at 14 feet wide, which is not wide enough for 2 cars. And 18 is ideal, but we have accepted 16-foot wide driveways in the past. The front setbacks for these homes are 30 feet from the home itself and 35 feet for the garage, so that it can allow 4 cars to park in the driveway and meet our minimum standards in our zoning ordinance. So those are the areas that we really wanted to focus on. Of course, we have other staff comments that we would like to be addressed as well, and I think that they're willing to address, but I wanted to point out to you the bigger ones that really, at this technical review, really when things start to happen, we need to see on the plans. If you have any questions of me, I'll be glad to answer them.
And so you're saying that if you're really okay with it if we were to approve it, subject to these things being changed and confirmed by staff?
I think we will work however you are most comfortable, and really it's for you. They are requesting to move forward. They want to go ahead and submit construction plans. So we do have another check or balance where we can say, okay, construction plans are here, make sure that you address these concerns. But really it's up to you as the body who needs to approve the preliminary plats. Sometimes when you change one thing, other things change. So you change the width of the driveway, then other things shift, or you want this additional information. It's my understanding that they want to move forward with this, and they don't. And part of what they want is not to wait to submit construction plans for another month. But obviously, this is something that whatever you're comfortable with, we can work with. If you think that, if you're willing for staff to work these out afterward, then we can move forward in that direction. But if you'd rather another route, of course, we'll accommodate that.
I do think these are some fairly substantial changes that do need to be made. I'll just state that however we get there. But, the roundabout most definitely needs to be the size that the fire trucks are going to be able to maneuver around the roundabout. And however that's going to affect everything else that's around that, whether that, I don't know, changes any of the roadway network or anything, but all of these are the drainage easement commitment that we made to the Northborough subdivision. I did think we definitely need to make sure that that is addressed, and lots of promises that we made as a body to that subdivision, and I want to make sure we don't drop the ball on that. So all the things.
I'll play rookie here for just a minute. Just let me kind of ask. It seems atypical, but maybe I'm off on this, that it would get to us with all those types of questions and issues being raised. I mean, it seems like we're here to review something that's not even there for us to review, is I guess what it kind of feels like. Is it typical? Is it more typical than I'm thinking to have this number of things, or
Well,
less typical?
I think that with that question, I'd need to defer to Mr. McKnight or Mr. Blomley. I just know when some things move, others, like you mentioned, like if this roundabout is changed, it may affect the driveway for a lot, and it may mean that lot can't have a driveway and they have to lose a lot. So it's just information like that is kind of like a waterfall thing. I don't think that they can't surmount the issues, but as far as preliminary plats coming to you, whether they're fully fleshed out or not, I think Mr. McKnight and Mr. Blomley probably should answer that.
So I guess one of the questions I might ask for the guy who's standing behind you there, I guess.
Do I have a shadow?
Yeah, would be, is 30 days or 20 days or 15 days next time we're together, is it that important that we get this done today?
Yeah, Gerald with Huddleston Steel, and it actually is that important to go ahead and get moving on our construction plans. And it's our preliminary plat, and we've submitted pretty substantial construction plans with that. We have no issues with the items that staff's brought up. We'll accommodate those. We had a Zoom meeting with staff on, Friday maybe? Thursday. We have since discussed the fire truck template with Mr. Carl Pease about the roundabout. He's comfortable with that. the drainage with Northborough.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, excuse me. So he's comfortable with what you discussed about the roundabout?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that as shown or as requested?
As shown, the main thing I think he said is when the trucks go around, a lot of times that curb is a stand-up curb, and the trucks hit it. We're going to go with a more of a rollover curb, and then we can put a sidewalk behind it. So we've done that in lots of other places, so if the fire truck does, and we've set templates, the fire truck makes this easily. They actually make the roundabout turn better than the other intersection. But we discussed that with him. But the fire truck and the drainage with Northborough, we can accommodate, and then the street trees, they're 60-foot wide lots. We're going with an 18-foot drive. We've agreed to do that. And then, with the water and sewer services near the center, so we still have room for street trees. The commitment is the street trees and the PUD to be 50 feet on center. And we can get that amount of trees through there. So we're comfortable with accommodating these comments as we finalize our construction plans. We can address these comments, and we'd love to move forward.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that I did speak with Carl this morning before the meeting, and I do want to say he was okay with the size of the roundabout as presented. It would just need to be designed with a truck apron with an 8-inch concrete, so that if the truck does need to go up over that apron, it's not a problem. And that's typically how we've seen them designed around town, at least in the last 5 years or so.
And then when those crack, then the city's responsible for repairing those. If there's repetitive, I would guess when the garbage trucks go around and everything else, the ones that are going to be much more repetitive than, for example, a fire truck, I would think, just that ease of being able to go over that, whatever you call that, roll curb.
It is typically, when they're designed with a decorative finish, that would also be something that the HOA would maintain, and not something that the city would maintain. But like I said, we would require that thicker depth of concrete for that truck apron.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, just to address Mr. LaLance's point earlier, kind of how it got to you today is that as we were reviewing it, we identified a number of important issues. As Mr. Jarrell mentioned, we did have a Zoom meeting with him and Mr. Friedsam before the agenda was published on Friday. And in an effort to keep them moving, we asked that they continue to work with us and get in some revised plans prior to the meeting for us to review. I think that the revised plans show that there's still some work to do, but I think that we as staff feel comfortable that they have an understanding of what they need to do and in our ability to work through those issues if the Planning Commission were to approve it, subject to all the staff comments that are in the written and verbal record. But, and to answer your question in general, there can be a wide variety of numbers and depths of comments that we receive or that we bring to you. When plans have a long way to go, we generally don't put it on the agenda and give courtesy comments. This was one where based on our meeting with the applicant last Thursday, we felt that they had an understanding, and we continue to feel that they have an understanding of what they need to do, and so we felt comfortable putting it on the agenda pending their commitment to making the necessary revisions.
Will subject to staff comments cover everything that it needs to cover if there's a motion?
I think so.
I'll move for approval subject to staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you. And I'll just comment that, we did just have 2 items on plats and plans today. And as we've already noted earlier in our meeting, that we had a quite extensive consent agenda, and those would be all of the items that they have already worked out to the point that
There's nothing to discuss.
Nothing to discuss. I'm sure all of those still have some items that require some additional,
We're going to make up that 7 minutes by putting more things that are on consent on the regular agenda.
but lots of hard work goes into.
This is going to be a contest?
Okay, let's see what we can do about new business. We have 2 items there. First item is a mandatory referral and right-of-way abandonment to consider abandonment of the rights-of-way of Berry Place, Burns Court, and Essex Court. Murfreesboro Housing Authority is the applicant. Ms. Smith, how are you today?
Very well, and good afternoon, Commission. As you just stated, the particular areas, we're looking at 3 separate abandonment areas as shown on the screen above. This is actually overlaid with the current master plan that we're working with that will come to you at a later point from the Housing Authority, but the abandonments are actually running a little bit ahead of their 100-page plan book. So in these particular areas, we're looking at approximately 1.33 acres. All 3 of the areas are surrounded by housing authority areas, so basically all of these units that are on Essex Court, they're basically duplex units. They're off of Mercury Court as you're coming into town. Berry Place also has duplexes on both sides of the street, as does Burns Court. Now, this particular portion here to the west of South Bilbro Avenue, it appeared on our GIS that it wasn't right-of-way, but in looking at various historical records, we couldn't find when that was dedicated to us. But early on, and I've never seen one of these maps before, this was a site layout map for all of those areas. And believe it or not, right here, they were going to call it Bilbro Court. Is that particular area, and it has been used as a city street. So in the abundance of caution, we're actually looking at also including that area into the abandonment, even though we can't track the record that goes back, and that's in our discussions with our legal counsel, Ives. So what we are asking for today, though, is to be able to set that public hearing for your June, double check, July 14th meeting as 3 separate public hearings. And we've already started to reach out to our various utility companies and have started to receive those comments, and you will receive that as part of your staff report at that particular meeting. But the assumption is these streets would not actually be abandoned until about phase 2, which may be about 4 years away for the Housing Authority, and then they would be replaced with wherever the new utilities would go. But this starts us with the process, and if you have any questions, the applicant is also here.
Ms. Smith, if you don't mind, just briefly bring up the 3 maps that zoom in on the...
There we go. So here's the Berry Place. So you can see between First Avenue and South Bilbro, those duplexes flanking both sides of the street, as well as this underlayment area. And then when you go to Burns Court, that's actually off of Minor Street on the north side, just off of Carver and Minor area. And then lastly, Essex is off of Hancock, which is Patterson is in the left side, and Essex is just half a block over. I have no idea why the screen went blank.
And as Ms. Smith mentioned, we feel that it would be cleaner to conduct 3 separate, even though we're bringing it to you as one item today, to schedule it and conduct it as 3 separate public hearings, since they're 3 separate roadways that we're looking to abandon.
Okay. So can we have one motion, or we need 3 motions?
One motion will suffice.
Okay. So we're looking to set 3 separate public hearings on July 14th for these mandatory referrals.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
July 14th, yeah.
July 14th? In that. what we said, right?
Correct. Thank you, Commission.
Okay. Next, we have a zoning application for approximately 5.4 acres located along Bridge Avenue and New Salem Highway to be rezoned from RS10 to PND, Transit Center PND, and the City of Murfreesboro applicant. Ms. Smith.
So this is as you mentioned, a City of Murfreesboro Transit Center project. You got included in your packet the current program book that we've gone through a first set of comment changes, and we literally just Friday last week got the revised program book. But this particular location, if you're not familiar with it, actually touches down onto both Bridge Avenue and New Salem Highway. As you can see here in the bottom right-hand corner, a little difficult to see, but Bridge obviously spans a pretty large way and is on our current plans as being a commercial collector street with a 3-lane roadway and a center divider, and then the New Salem Highway is a major arterial with 3 lanes that's getting ready to be 5-laned. And in talking with our Public Works Division, they were stating that the bid process for that widening work is anticipated this August, and it would be probably about a 24 to 30-month project for that street widening, which may be a little bit behind what our anticipated construction schedule is for the center itself. This is located on 5.43 acres of land. Best to see right there in this top portion. You'll notice that surrounding it on the property site, we have having a problem with glasses today. There we go. RS10 single-family residential. Commercial highway is there on the corner with the existing bail bonds. And then heavy industrial is to the south for the project. The reason for the rezone to the planned institutional district, which is called a PND, is to allow for the creation of this transit center and its associated passenger pickup, administration, maintenance, and bus storage. As you can see on this particular map, a portion of the project is within the 500-year and the 100-year floodplains, and the project location of those buildings you can see outlined here. They're basically meeting the City of Murfreesboro floodplain ordinance and putting those buildings at the appropriate elevation heights to be able to accommodate those particular portions. And also looking at the MTP for the site, it is located in close proximity to Malloy, which is also anticipated here in the top left. You can see that orange line going up and down is anticipated for the Malloy realignment, which would be in close proximity to this particular transit facility. The current comprehensive general plan actually shows this particular site as being appropriate for general commercial character. That general commercial character allows really significant portions of development sites devoted to vehicular access, drives, circulation routes, surface parking, and loading areas. And based on those specifics, we do believe that it is in consistency with our general plan for our long term. So we're going through the area. Again, adjacent, there's a existing church due north of the project site, the bail bonds on the corner, and then some single-family residential to the west. And to the south, there's industrial commercial type uses. Looking at the project site, this is a great map that shows all the specific layouts for fencing, both chain link fencing and solid fencing to buffer against the adjacent properties, but it also shows our 2 access points. The point here off of New Salem is to access that front parking lot for employees closest to the administration building, as well as any visitors to the site. And then this access point off of Bridge Avenue would actually accommodate buses, only. So it would actually have locked gates in the evening time and then armed gates during the day, so that only the buses are able to enter and exit as they're going in a clockwise motion, which if you look at it, when you do get back to Bridge Avenue, those are in different lanes than you would normally expect. But in order to have passengers load directly adjacent to where that bus door opens and not come around the bus door, you need to be able to accommodate this clockwise motion. And the city has been working, with consultants HDR that does transit centers for a living and has looked at the most efficient use of this site with city staff for this past several months. And then lastly, you can see that blue shaded area actually represents the 100-year floodplain and where it hits, and it just hits kind of the bottom portion of this center building. This is actually known as the passenger transit area, so it has a canopy in the center, restrooms to the north side of that building, and then that south side of the building would be ticket purchasing, some storage, janitorial, in those sections. And then you'll notice the other portion that gets clipped a little bit is the bus maintenance building, and it kind of has two halves. So again, we're looking at elevations and making sure that those are at the appropriate locations. And then lastly, this is the administration building that would have that main focus off of the New Salem Highway and is oriented to that particular portion. But we are working through, but we are including so far floor plans, elevations that are available for the site. Staff is working diligently to make sure that missing elevations are added. Any elevations that might not exactly meet our design guidelines, we're going to be meeting on those things. But you can see here's those center canopy areas with the seating in the center, and all of this would be locked away at night, and only that front admin building and parking lot would be accessible to the public after hours. But these things we would be bringing back to you during our public hearing, so we are looking at scheduling a public hearing for that same July 14th, where we would bring you updated plan book that would accommodate and adjust for any of those missing items or things that we want to make sure that we have clarified. So I don't know, I think, yes, Jim Kerr is the main city person that's been leading the charge for the project. I don't know, Jim, if you want to add anything today, but he's here for any questions that you might have today prior to scheduling for that public hearing.
So I have a curiosity question. Is this transit center just for city use, or will there be like Greyhound going in and out of here? And then also, is it a maintenance facility for the school buses also, or is this strictly Rover?
No, this is strictly Rover. You got to remember, we operate with all federal dollars, okay? So we've got certain guidelines that we have to follow. This particular facility will service Rover, but it will also service RTA, the Regional Transit Authority that comes into Murfreesboro. So we will service those guys as well.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Kerr?
You comfortable with the opposite direction? I mean, it kind of looks like the way it's got to be, but is it?
Yeah, we're all good with it. I mean, it's going to be our drivers only, pretty much. So, I mean, we'll get the routine done, and we won't have any issues with it.
Jim, how many buses do you have now?
We currently
Rover?
have 7 routes, and we've got how many spares? 9 buses total.
Okay.
We actually just purchased 9 new buses that we should be getting in October timeframe. So we're going to have everything pretty new here shortly.
Great.
So the administrative building, is it strictly for the use of, from a transit perspective, or will there be other folks in there?
Right now, it'll be strictly transit.
Okay.
Transit-oriented transportation.
Any other questions or comments? And if not, we are looking to set a public hearing on this item on July 14th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Commission.
All right, thank you. Next, we have staff reports and other business.
I have nothing.
I have just a scheduling reminder. As you noticed, the items that we just scheduled for public hearing were on July 14th. Our calendar for 2021 was adopted with July 14th as our night meeting date for July instead of July 7th in case commission members were traveling for the July 4th holiday week. So that's July 14th at 6 p.m. Our day meeting in July will be July 21st, but that's one of the odd meeting times that it's going to be at 2:30 p.m. in the event that it was going to conflict with the council workshop. Don't know when the council workshop will be for July yet, but we wanted to make sure that in case it was on that date, Mr. LaLance and Mr. Wright would have plenty of time to make it over here to spend their whole day with city business. So July 14th, 6 p.m., July 21st, 2:30 p.m.
2:30.
I do have it at 2:30.
Do you?
Yes, by the way.
But not 2.
It's just, yeah.
Right. Okay. July 14th, 6 p.m., and July 21st, 2:30 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Blomley. Any other staff reports or any other business? Okay, if not, we stand adjourned. Thank you.